Hey, Chris here. Before we jump in, I wanted to talk to you for a minute about the frequency of our show. We really wanted this episode to drop during the 2024 election season. Thankfully, I was able to get it up for Inauguration Day. There's a multitude of reasons why I'm just having a hard time getting the editing done and getting the turnaround time, but I just wanted to thank you. You're a loyal listener. I see the downloads, and I just wanted to thank you for continuing to come back every time we drop an episode. And I wish I could promise you that the frequency would get better, but 2025 is bringing my fourth grandchild, and I'm super stoked, and I love this season of my life, but I also work a full-time job, and yeah, so long as this is a hobby, it's gonna remain a little unpredictable sometimes. But again, I just wanted to thank you for sticking with us, and if you are enjoying the show, please share it with somebody, and why don't you crack one open and let's get this one started. You're listening to the Silver Screen Happy Hour. I'm Chris Wiegand, along with my brother Jerome.
Present and accounted for.
All right, I'm ready for this one. So I guess one of the questions that we've been kicking around as we were talking about doing these two movies is, are there any good politicians?
Well, wait. You're burying the lead. Why did we even choose these movies?
Well, I mean, who's running for president?
We are in an election year.
On both sides.
Right, but my point is that it's an election year.
Yeah, it's an election
We are, as of today, we are, what, 2 months away? Less than.
Yeah,
less
shit,
than
by the time I get this
away.
edited, it'll probably be election night.
We should release this on election night. So, yeah, we did choose two political movies, and we posed the question that we are thinking of ourselves. Are there any good politicians?
So, and I think this is a great pairing to answer that question as far as comedy goes. Because right now, politics is straight up comedy.
Straight comedy.
To me. And like real life politics. It's just crazy. It's crazy times we live in. But for our audience's sake, we're not going to be actually talking about real politics. You're welcome.
Yeah. Exactly. You'll thank us later.
So where should we start? Let's start with, what are you drinking?
Well, as you know, I brought this out for the John Wick episode because it was so good. I still haven't finished the bottle yet.
Oh yeah, I hope not.
But yeah, I know, because it's rather pricey stuff. But it's a nice bottle of Blanton's, and I brought this out today because in the movies, both movies, you often see people drinking the high-end whiskey because that's what politicians do, right?
Sure.
They get together to carve up this country amongst themselves, and they do it over a glass of whiskey. So here we go. Hang on.
That's a nice-looking bottle. I like that bottle. Is that a horse on the cork on the top?
It is a horse. And remember, it was actually in the movie John Wick,
right,
which is why I chose it for that podcast.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Oh yeah, I love me some whiskey, and I'm not drinking whiskey today.
No,
man. I had enough whiskey for the week at the wedding I went to on Saturday, but that's not for this conversation. I actually decided this is political comedies, and in politics, you have banquets, you have champagne. And so I decided I'm drinking some bubbly today, something I don't normally do.
What?
So this is a bottle my wife opened yesterday because she had some girlfriends over. There it is.
I like how you're drinking the girlfriend's leftover wine.
You know.
Girls' night out.
My wife doesn't normally drink it, so it's just going to go flat in our refrigerator. So here we go.
So if...
Gotta pour this slow. Jeez. This is going to be a noisy podcast.
All right, so I don't think we even mentioned, of course the audience knows by now, hopefully, the two movies we're talking about today are Dave and The Campaign.
Yeah, and Dave and The Campaign, as we get into these comedies, I think answers the question, are there any good politicians? Or they attempt to.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
All right, so I think we should start with Dave. And the reason is because there's more silly humor in the second film.
Yeah.
And as we go drinking, as this podcast
It'll
goes
be
on,
more.
it gets funnier as it goes.
Well, and that's maybe the problem. I'll just tip my hand right now. I did not like the campaign, and we'll get there.
Okay,
but I was sober when I watched it.
That's probably that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem.
If I was watching it with you drinking, I probably would have enjoyed it more.
Well, don't worry. Moviegoers agreed with you, and we'll get to that too.
Go for it.
Okay, Dave, here's the specs. 1993, directed by Ivan Reitman, written by Gary Ross. Running time of 1 hour, 50 minutes with a budget of $28 million. It was released on May 7th, 1993. And made $63 million worldwide, which was good for 16th place that year, falling behind films like Philadelphia, Groundhog Day, and Grumpy Old Men, but finished ahead of Demolition Man, Tombstone, and Falling Down. So it's 93. We already talked about 93 when we did the True Romance episode. Yep. So you already know what the number one movie of the year was.
Jurassic Park.
But I'm going to add a new flavor to the list. I am going to ask you if you can name the top 5 movies of the entire 90s.
No.
The decade of the 90s.
I'm not even going to try.
Top 5. Now,
okay, Titanic.
Titanic was number 1, and I'm sure you can guess number 2 because you just said it.
Forrest Gump or Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. So
Forrest Gump's got to be in there, though.
Forrest Gump is not in the top 5. Wow. But wait, there's funny trivia that connects to that. But for the entire 90s, Titanic is 1, Jurassic Park is 2.
The Matrix.
Give me the other 3. No,
that was better. I mean, that probably went bigger on video. What else?
That was somewhere around 7 or 8 on the list, if I can remember correctly. Now, remember, this is
Saving Private Ryan.
This is worldwide gross. No.
No? Dang.
You're missing 2 obvious ones. There's one I don't think you'll get. But you're missing 2 obvious ones that I know you know and would kick yourself.
Yeah, I mean, JFK? That wasn't that big.
No.
What? I just tell us.
Think of the Force. Think lightsabers.
In the 90s?
Hello? What was the most anticipated film of all time?
Was that in 99?
Yes, The Phantom Menace.
I have that in my head as 2000. Wow.
So The Phantom Menace was the 3rd highest grossing worldwide film of the decade of the 90s.
I could see that.
Okay, I don't think you'll get number 4, so we'll get to that in a second. But you got to know number 5. This was another space-oriented movie. Think of disaster films.
Independence Day.
Independence Day was number 5.
Big one. That was a big summer blockbuster.
Number 4, I don't think you'd get if you sat here and named 20 movies.
What was it?
You'll be surprised, but I'll give you a hint. It's animated.
Lion King.
Yes! Yeah. I thought for sure you were going to say either Beauty and the Beast or Toy Story because both of those were on the list.
And
Lion King.
Since we're talking about Star Wars and Lion King, should we raise a glass right now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That was yesterday, right?
Yeah, we got the news yesterday. James Earl Jones has moved on and joined the Force.
He has absorbed into the Force.
And just raise
this
glass.
93 years old, since we're talking about 1993.
Yeah.
James Earl Jones was 93. And here's for you, James. I'm going to drink mine right now.
Yep. Sorry for the slurp there, James.
All right, so Lion King. So here's the funny trivia when you mentioned Forrest Gump. Lion King finished 2nd to Forrest Gump in 94.
Oh my gosh.
But the overall decade and worldwide gross, Lion King surpassed it by the time the decade was over.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So in that one single year, and if you were to just do 94, Forrest Gump made more than Lion King. But since then, overall, The Lion King has become the bigger movie.
Interesting.
Of the 90s. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to Dave, a movie that was not one of the top 5 grossing of all time, or at least of the 90s. Dave was nominated for 1 Academy Award, Best Original Screenplay, Gary Ross, but he lost to Jane Campion for The Piano. The other 3 nominees in the original screenplay category that year were Sleepless in Seattle, Philadelphia, and one of my personal favorites, In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood. So, a great year for original screenplays.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave stars Kevin Kline as Dave Kovic, Dave Kovic / Bill Mitchell. He plays both parts.
Right.
Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Mitchell. Frank Langella as Bob Alexander. Kevin Dunn as Alan Reed. Ving Rhames as Dwayne Stevenson. Ben Kingsley as Vice President Nance. Laura Linney in an early role for her as Randy. And Charles Grodin as Murray Blum.
Yep.
All right, when did you first see this movie?
Probably right after it came out. I don't think I saw it at the theater, but I remember seeing it way back when, I don't remember. I saw it on video. I've seen it on video several times. So just watched it again a couple days ago.
Yeah, we were talking about on the True Romance episode how many times you and I had gone to the movies, not together, but with our friends.
Sure.
How many movies came out in 93? I mean, look at the ones I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, Sleepless in Seattle, In the Line of Fire, Jurassic Park.
And back then we still had cable, so these things eventually made it to cable. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't remember how many times I know I've saw it several times because I enjoyed this movie, and if it was on, I didn't mind sitting down and watching it.
So I as well did not see this in the theater. Again, it was just one of the ones I missed. There was just so many damn movies out in 93.
Right.
And isn't that funny that today's era, we live in a world of streaming to where I might go to the movies 3 times all year.
Isn't that crazy?
And not only that, how many big movies can we say there are? Like what? Last year there was Oppenheimer and Barbie were the 2 biggest ones, right? Everything else we got on streaming.
Yeah.
I mean, other than taking your kids to see an animated film, and my kids are still small, we just don't do it like we did back then. In 93, that's what you did. I think me and my friends went to the movies every other Friday, if not every Friday.
Right.
And you
went more than I did, but I still,
aside from seeing Jurassic Park 4 times in the theater, there were still all these other films. Tombstone came out in 93. You know what I mean?
Well, and plus we grew up in Michigan, so in the winter, if you're not into outdoor sports in the winter, you went to the movies. Yeah,
there was only one thing to do. So on that note, I also did not see this in the theater, but it came out on video. December 22nd was when it was on VHS. And I'm happy to say, Mom, if you're listening, this was one of Mom and I's Friday night Skip's video rentals that we watched together.
That's great.
I remember this. I remember in the movie Parenthood, in the beginning of the movie Parenthood, he called it an amalgam, where you have, 20 different memories, but they're all kind of lopped together into one memory.
Yeah.
I have one memory of watching movies with Mom on Friday night from Skip's Video, but I know that it happened from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s.
Oh, it happened all the time, yeah.
Yeah, that's all. We went to Skip's Video on Fridays, and we rented whatever was out.
If not weekly, multiple times a month.
And Skip would hold the new releases for Mom.
Wow.
So that she would get her hands on the new releases.
That's great.
And Dave was one of them. So, all right, log me.
All right. An uncanny presidential lookalike named Dave is recruited by the Secret Service to become a momentary stand-in for the President of the United States.
Pretty clean.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. And because it's billed as a comedy, anybody reading that, if they, looking through the newspaper to see what movie you want to see this week, and they read that, they're like, oh, that could be funny.
Yeah.
So,
like Kevin Kline. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. Let's do it. All right. We have The Beats, which is ironic that anybody that listens to our podcast, I say it like that every week. Every time we do this, I say every week. Every time we do this. And it's a play on We Have the Meats. And it's Ving Rhames' voice that does that in the Arby's commercial.
We need to get him to do our podcast.
Oh, God. Ving Rhames, I know you're listening.
Oh, that'd be great.
Of course you are. Can you do the We Have the Beats the way you do We Have the Meats for the Arby's commercial?
Man. That would make me hungry, though.
Oh, I know. That would be so good. All right. All right. Once again, if you're listening for the
Arby's
first
should
time,
sponsor this episode now, damn it.
They should. Arby's and Blanton's. There's our sponsors. So if you are listening to our podcast for the first time, you know that when I say the beats, we're talking a lot about Blake Snyder and his Save the Cat beat sheets. We will also reference, we usually do, writing techniques from the other big giants, the Sid Fields and, Robert McGee. But the big one is Blake Snyder. That's what a lot of the podcast notes come from.
Yeah.
So here are the beats. Opening image. So the opening credits appear over the vast landscapes of Washington, D.C. Every monument, every historical site you can think of. And this is going to serve as a perfect bookend to the closing shot. All right, setup. There's a lot of setup in the first 7 minutes. That's my brother peeing right now. He didn't want to go to the bathroom, so he's peeing.
All right, go for it.
All right, so in the first 7 minutes, Dave is introduced. The fact that he runs a temp agency, does side gigs as a presidential impersonator, the fact that he rides a bike, all these things are like they're going to be paid off later. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
The whole save the cat thing where Dave, the main character, one of Blake Snyder's things where he got the title of his books from, Save the Cat, is that your protagonist should do something early in the movie that's good. That gets the audience wanting to root for him, right?
Right.
Well, Dave finds Lola a job in like the first few minutes of the movie, all right? He works in a temp agency and she's crying.
Doesn't he manage it or own it?
Yeah, he runs it. Yeah. It's Kovic Temps is the name of the business.
So it's his.
Yeah, it's his, but so that's what he does.
Yeah.
Right? We also get an intro to his friend Murray, who helps him out by hiring the people that he needs to get jobs for. But also what I thought was interesting is intercut in the middle of all this is at the same time we meet President Mitchell, who essentially does the opposite. He kills the cat. Because when he wants to get rid of the homeless shelters, right?
So right off the bat, you know who you're rooting for.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's a perfect contrast. I thought that was genius.
Yeah.
That while Dave is saving the cat, Bill Mitchell is killing the cat because he's just a dick, right?
Yeah.
So, and I guess it goes with our question for today. Are there any good politicians? We know that this guy is a career politician.
Right.
Because of how he treats people, right? All right.
And he shows like in the opening scene how he puts on a face for the crowd, but then he immediately turns it off when he gets behind closed doors.
The way he throws the dog leashes. What an asshole. Right? They give him he gets off the presidential helicopter. They walk his cute little dogs over to him. He takes the leashes, smiles to the crowd, walks the dogs, and then when he gets inside the White House, he throws the leashes. Like, get these fucking animals away from me. So it's a perfect setup. And here is something I wanted to notate. They had to do it this way for it to work.
Yeah.
If the president was a nice guy, this movie doesn't work.
Right.
The only reason this movie works so well is because we root for Dave. We wouldn't root for Dave as much if the president was also cool.
Right.
So in the first 7 minutes, we also meet the two sidekicks of the president, his chief of staff, Bob Alexander, and communications director, Alan Reed, as well as Dwayne Stevenson, the head of the Secret Service, agent played by Ving Rhames. All right, theme stated at 8 minutes in. The theme also kicks off our 4-point push as it starts the inciting incident. They kind of both happen at the same time. The president occasionally uses impersonators and stand-ins to do hand-waving while he is securely moved out of places and into other places. Dwayne presents all this to Dave and says, quote, "Your government needs your help." This will not only be Dave's ongoing theme and the central question throughout the film, but it also is kind of a jump on the tangible goal to the spiritual goal. We're going to get more on that later, but in the immediate, the central question is, can the little guy make a difference in the country? Right? That's Dave's central question. They're asking him for help. So that's going to be the theme of the film, and Dave's journey is going to help us answer it, as well as our question that you and I posed to each other. All right, 4-point push. We already mentioned the inciting incident. That's when Dwayne kind of crashes into Dave's before world and asks him for help to do stand-in work. Dave agrees, and he does the hand-waving at the Monroe Hotel while the real president is off presiding over some serious cave drilling. Sorry, that was a metaphor. By the way, also in this scene, we start to see the promises of the premise as Dave tries out the theme of the little guy making a difference. You're going to see this peppered throughout the movie. So in this part, he's walking, like as the president, everybody's behind him, and he just stops to see if everybody else will stop too. And they do. And they all look at him like, why are you stopping? And then he starts walking again, right? So it's the little things like that. Like, can the little guy really change things? Like, can the little guy make a difference?
What's cool about those opening scenes, too, when he is first impersonating the president, is that it's so relatable. Like, I would feel that way. I would be weirded out by it, right? Because, who am I, right? So it's very relatable.
we're going to get a couple of those throughout the whole film. Like there's several of them. Also, when he goes to do this hand waving, he gets kind of loses control of himself. And he yells out, "God bless you! God bless America!" But anyway, he wasn't supposed to talk. He was given direction not to say anything.
Right.
But he couldn't hold it in. All right, so Catalyst, 16 minutes in. This was the serious cave drilling I was alluding to. While the president is cheating on his wife with Brandy, the White House secretary. Oh, by the way, she was also introduced earlier in the first 7 minutes. So a lot happens in that first 7 minutes. I forgot to mention, we did introduce Brandy as well. That's Laura Linney's character. He has a stroke. A bad one. Like hit both sides of his brain.
Yep.
All right, debate begins. 18 minutes in, Bob and Alan hatch a plan for secrecy and decide to keep the country in the dark, at least for the short term. Then, of course, they pitch this to Dave in this great sort of like, quote unquote, the country is sick and you're going to get her to the hospital speech. That's a great scene.
Yeah.
They're sitting down on the couch like, have you ever run a red light? And he's all, I don't know. Maybe. Like he doesn't want to answer. And they're like, well, what if it was at night and there's nobody around? How about then? He's like, I don't know. Like he still doesn't want to answer. Right. They're like, well, what if your mom was in the car and she was sick? You'd do it then, right? He's like, yeah, then I guess I would do it. And they're like, Dave, the whole country is in the car.
Yeah, that's funny.
So the country is sick, and you're going to get her to the hospital. So that's the debate. And then break into two is where they're basically showing him around at night. And while Dave is in awe and feeling very insecure, there's another emotional push and pull moment where he almost gets the little man can't make a difference because he looks out the window and he goes, whoa, at the sight. And then when he sits on the end of the bed, he sees the painting of George Washington. Right. And a look of terror comes across his face like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? so that's sort of that, again, that emotional tug of war, the push and pull. I think the definitive moment of breaking into Act 2, though, in this scene is almost exactly at the 25-minute mark. He's standing in front of the mirror and he's practicing the impersonation skills because he picked up the phone, right? And as soon as he picks up the phone, the guy on the other end automatically goes, yes, Mr. President? And he goes, nothing, good night. And he hangs up. So now he's standing in front of the mirror and he's practicing his impersonation. He's all, nothing, good night, you know? So I feel like that's the definitive moment because at that point, I could be wrong, other people might have a different one. I think that's the definitive point because he's in now. He might be insecure and scared, but he's agreed to do it. Yeah, right? He's all in. So we're now getting into the upside down world of Act 2. Starts in fun and games. Act 2 begins with Alan's press conference telling the world about the president's mild stroke. Bob lays out his plan to take over. This is privately after the press conference. At the 27-minute mark, Bob says, quote, I just hope this Yutz can pull it off. End quote. Again, a little man reference, right? Mm-hmm. Can the little man do this? Can the little man make a difference? Also in that scene, Bob is drinking scotch while Alan is drinking Alka-Seltzer. I think this is clever. This is not an accident. This is done on purpose. It's setting up between the two of them, which is the one with the conscience. And which one is the one with the bad guy, right? Which one's the bad guy? Which one's the good guy? Bob is the shark. And Alan's the one that feels remorse, fear, and regret almost immediately for what they're doing. In fact, I want to say that scene opens with him on the couch, and he goes, do you have any idea how many different laws we've broken?
Oh, they'd be in jail forever.
Oh, dude. So a funny moment in this segment as well. They tell Dave to call his job and tell him he's not going to be there for a month because he fell in love and he's going away on a month-long holiday. Yeah. When he calls the temp agency to talk to his secretary, this is one of my favorite lines of the whole movie. He goes, he's making up that he met someone. And he goes, oh, yeah, she's real exotic. She's Polynesian. Well, half Polynesian, half American. She's amnesian. I gotta say, man, when I saw this in 93 sitting on the couch with Mom, I busted out laughing. Like that was, for an 18-year-old, that's comic gold right there, you know? I just thought that was so funny. All right, B story. When does the B story come in, Chris? Usually about how long?
Halfway?
No, you always say that. You always say that.
And you always ask.
And I always ask. I don't know why. At the 34-minute mark, usually about a half hour in. So you got the half part right, just not halfway.
Half hour. That's what it was.
All right. At the 34-minute mark, we're officially introduced to the First Lady. Even though she did make a brief appearance earlier, like with the dog leash thing, she was there. But we don't really meet her, you know. So this is where we actually are introduced to Ellen Mitchell, who shows up for a media hand-waving that she hates to do. Ellen serves the B story because she will drive Dave to his spiritual goal. Funny moment, his first lines on screen are, her first lines as soon as she walks in the door. He's just seeing her for the first time. The first thing she says is, "Why can't you die from a stroke like everyone else?"
I know, I love that.
Okay, and then they kind of do this like weird like Cyrano de Bergerac thing where they're like feeding him lines and he's on the balcony reciting the lines, and then he gets distracted and they're like, because the media keeps asking questions, and they're like, "Go, just go, go, go," and he goes, "Go, go, go." Yeah. Everyone's confused. All right, more fun and games. Ellen notices little changes. So this is something else that's going to be peppered throughout the movie, is little times Ellen notices something that makes her think something's up with this impersonator. Remember, she still thinks it's him. She still thinks it's her husband.
Right.
But during the fun and games scene, there's a scene where he's out on the lawn playing with dogs. And she's on the balcony watching. This is later than this press conference part. And they kind of have a shot of her like she's taking interest in it because the husband never plays with the dogs. He hates the dogs. You know what I mean? So it's during this montage of Dave adjusting to presidential life. So that's one thing right there where Ellen notices a change. At the 42-minute mark, he has a late-night sandwich with Dwayne. This is a double setup and payoff for later. For both the sandwich and Dwayne. They're both going to have a payoff later from this. After confirming that Dwayne's job is about taking a bullet for the president, Dave asks, "So now you'd take a bullet for me?"
Yeah, right.
And Dwayne's hesitant in answering. He doesn't answer, as a matter of fact.
He just looks at him.
Right, and Dave is frightened. No, he doesn't just look at him. You can tell that he's uncertain. Not Dave, Dwayne. Dwayne's like, I don't know if I would like, you're just a nobody, you know? So because he can't answer it, Dave's kind of like, what the fuck? Like, he's kind of frightened. All right, so meanwhile, while this is going on, Bob and Alan discuss dropping the first Liberty scandal on the vice president and how Dave's poll numbers are skyrocketing. Bob says, quote, "Alan, you still need to control this guy." Again, there is no wasted line in this movie.
Right.
Even those little throwaway lines are important. You know, that's a sign that Bob foresees that this could become a problem. You know, the old Bill Mitchell was a dick and he had unlikability. But Dave is very likable. His poll numbers skyrocketing could be a problem for Bob and his plan.
Right.
So Bob's starting to get worried. All right, case in point, Dave gets some savagely good media coverage when he visits a homeless shelter and does a magic trick for the child, the very homeless shelter that Bill Mitchell, the president, wanted to get rid of. This starts with Ellen noticing another little change. Her husband never did shit like this. Also, in the car going there, before we even get to the homeless shelter, her skirt sort of falls off her knee, and he notices her legs. She notices him noticing her legs.
Right.
You know, that's a change. She'll say later that he stopped looking years ago. So she's noticing little changes. Okay. Dave bonds with Dwayne afterward, after the homeless shelter scene. And while he's doing that, Bob vetoes the bill.
Yeah. Forging the name of the president.
Forging the name, right. And he vetoes the bill because, after all, why would he want to save a homeless shelter? They wanted to kill it from the first 2 minutes of the movie. The president wanted to kill this bill. What?
I was just going to say we're not going to get into politics, but there's some strikingly similar things to what conspiracy theorists today would say has been going on in the current White House.
Well,
other people pulling the strings and running the show.
If you think that is evident of what's going on today, wait till we get to the campaign.
I know.
That one has got today's politics reeked all over it.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, okay. Damn, where'd I leave off now? All right. So he vetoes the bill, right? This is another moment where Ellen visibly notices a difference in her husband when she goes to yell at him in the bathroom. Yeah. He's in the shower.
Naked.
And she demands he turn around. And when he turns around, she kind of like looks at his dick. like it breaks her concentration. But they never say why. In fact, later...
Well, no, they do say why.
No. Later he says... When we'll get to it.
Well, they allude to him having an erection. Because she said... Or something, it happens, you know?
I think, well, what confused me is later when after she finds out, he says, "Was it the shower? Is that when you knew?" And she said no.
Oh,
and she says it was something else. In fact, she says it was the limo where he looked at her legs. So I think she's not alluding that there was any difference, but the fact that they literally show her breaking her concentration, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Was he erect, or did he just have a bigger dick?
Well, there's a line though. That I know that's the thing, but there's a line where I think she says it happens. Like, and I took that as, oh, he's getting larger.
I don't remember her saying that.
We'll have to go back and look.
All right, gotta watch it again. Anyway,
unfortunately, I didn't buy it, so I can't just look it up right now.
All right, so another element of promise of the premise of can the little guy make a difference? When Dave tells Dwayne to call Bob and Alan, Dwayne says it's 10:30 at night. Dave looks at him like he just gives him a look, right?
Yeah.
And Dwayne says, okay, and he goes to call. So again, he's still not the president. He's just a guy.
Right.
But now even Dwayne is taking orders from him. So this culminates in a testy scene with Bob and Dave where Bob tells him if he can cut $650 million from the federal budget, he can keep his lousy homeless shelter. And before he leaves, he also sends him a very pointed note. Don't you ever send for me again.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful sequence because the emotional tug of war is there. One scene, he's delivering the theme with the magic trick to the kid, and the next scene, Bob swats him back down to reality, right? Like when he says, don't ever send for me again, he's letting him know you're a nobody.
Yeah.
Right? You're not the president. So that's that push and pull of emotion that Dave's going through. Some scenes he feels empowered. Other scenes he feels dwarfed. Mostly by Bob, but he feels dwarfed. So then in the next scene, Dave pulls that emotional shift right back as we get to the midpoint scene. After meeting with Murray at the 55-minute mark, Dave comes up with a way to trim $650 million from the budget in order to keep the homeless shelter. Talk about the theme of the little guy that can make a difference. I mean, like,
right.
This is what I meant earlier about how the beats are very clean in this.
Yeah.
This is clearly accomplishing the tangible goal.
Oh, it's a great screenplay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
nailing it.
Again, nominated for an Oscar. So the tangible goal is what Dave wants, right? He wants to help, and he achieves that at the midpoint. But as we all know, it's a false victory because more shit's going to steamroll down afterwards. More on this scene later, but I don't want to get into it right now. I'll get into it a little bit later. All right, bad guys closing in. Immediately after, Bob is pissed, and Alan puts him on notice. I like that scene, too. Bob's like, I'll have him sent to prison. I'll lock him up forever. And then Alan goes, then we'll all go to jail together.
Yeah.
And that stops Bob in his tracks. He realizes, like, what the fuck? So you're going to roll on me. And basically that's what Alan's telling him. You talk, I'll talk.
Right.
All right. Ellen discovers Dave is not the president. And while some consider this an all is lost moment, it's not. I feel that some people would consider this the all is lost moment because it changes the direction of the story. But I just think it's yet another beat. I think Ellen is the B story, and her goal is to drive Dave to his spiritual goal.
Yeah.
So she's gonna have to know eventually.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with you on that.
So
I know what the all is lost is.
Yeah. So this is just a blip in sort of the bad guys closing in. Another promise of the premise. Dave explains to Ellen, "I never wanted to hurt anybody. In fact, I thought I was helping." He's basically saying right there the goal from the whole time. Ellen sees her husband, knows he's going to die, and she wants to leave. Dave talks her into leaving together, but while they're out having a sandwich, there's the payoff. He makes her his famous sandwich from earlier, the one he had with Dwayne.
Yep.
Oddly enough, if you notice, Dwayne doesn't eat the sandwich that Dave makes him. He makes him his famous sandwich, and it just sits there in front of him. He doesn't eat it. But Ellen does. All right? So, and that's also kind of metaphorical, too, if you think about it. Like, because in the scene with Dwayne, he's pitching to him, I'm the president now, kind of. So you should step in front of a bullet for me too, right? Dwayne doesn't eat the sandwich. He's making a statement there. You're not the president. I'm not eating what you're serving. But Ellen, when he starts talking to Ellen about things that he wanted to do and that he wanted to help, she's eating the sandwich. It's almost like a metaphor of I'm giving you my spiel and you're eating it, right?
Yeah.
You're taking it in it.
Yeah,
so sandwich
sure. That's actually, I didn't consider that, yeah.
Yeah, the sandwich is important.
Yeah,
So she fulfills the B story role around the 1 hour, 10-minute mark when she asks Dave, if he really was the president, what would he do? And as a temp agency manager, he immediately thinks of a job proposal, right? So they both decide to go back to the White House. Ellen keeps the secret while Dave fires Bob. And the emotional shift is back. The little guy can make a difference. Dave goes public in the press conference about Bob's resignation and lays out his jobs bill. Ironically, which I think it's clear that they make Bill Mitchell's administration sort of right-wing, as the ensuing montage is all the Republican allies are condemning it, and all the Democrats are like, oh, this is a great plan. Like, this is a plan I even came up with. You know what I mean? So, and if you really, I don't know if they actually ever say it, but it's obvious to me in that scene. And also, Ben Stein shows up in a cameo to Bob Alexander's get-together. And Ben Stein's Republican. He's always been. So if he's a friend of the administration, it kind of hints that they're Republicans.
Sure.
Okay. At the 1 hour, 24-minute mark, we meet the Vice President, Nance, and find that he's not insane, because they told him earlier he was insane.
Right.
But he's a rather nice, straight-up guy. All right, all is lost. Let me see if you had the same one I did. I have all is lost, 1 hour, 27 minutes. Bob has a press conference laying out all the illegal dealings that
100%.
Bill Mitchell made, and Dave realizes these accusations are true. Yeah. It's a great scene where he's like, I can't believe it. Now he's making up lies about me. And Alan's all, no, he's not. And he's like, what? I did that? I did all those things? He's like, well, you didn't. Bill Mitchell did.
Right.
So, falling back on the little guy can make a difference, Dave feels lost, that Washington may be too much for him. He is perhaps the little guy. He's seeing the Washington machine getting ready to crush him, right? So, again, he's not done. The emotional tug of war is still going. Dark Night of the Soul. During this time, Nance is invited to sit and talk with Dave, who asks him how he got started. Nance tells him this story about how he was a shoe salesman and he had aspirations to run for city council. Premise of the premise, the little guy can make a difference. This is also going to pay off later. When he asks Dave how he got started, he foreshadows the ending by saying, oh, my story is kind of similar to yours. Keep that in mind, because that's going to pay off later. All right, political allies want him to shelf the jobs plan until the scandal blows over, but Dave won't. Dave is sticking to his guns. Again, little guy can make a difference. A and B stories collide, as after he meets with Nance and Ellen again, he has his idea. Break into 3. Dave calls for an emergency joint session of Congress to discuss the accusations. 5-point finale. Here we go. Gathering the team. 1 hour, 33 minutes. Dave, Alan, and Dwayne all have the plan intact. Execution of the plan. Dave acknowledges the charges in Congress in the session, the Congress session. And he owns them. He takes responsibility for all of them. But he also implicates Bob in the process. This is the scene where Bob has all his friends over and they're watching on TV. And they have a Bob Alexander for president sign. Ben Stein shows up. It's all great until he implicates Bob. And then the next shot, everybody's gone. And Bob's sitting by himself. And he's holding the Bob Alexander for president sign.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Hightower surprise. The president appears to have another stroke. Only this one is the real one. Since the audience was not shown the plan in advance, there is probably a moment, I know there was for me, where, I mean, of course, I was 18 years old. I was just a kid. Yeah. But when he starts to have these spells, I'm like, holy shit, is something really wrong? And then it occurred to me, like, oh, I see. This is where they're going to do the switcheroo.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, dig down deep. First Lady gets up from her seat. This is another indication that it was all part of the plan, because Ellen isn't scared at all when she sees him pass out in front of Congress. She just gets up and puts her jacket on. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to go. So she gets up. She's rather uninterested in the events that are just transpired. It's because she's in on it. She puts on her jacket, grabs her things, and goes. Execution of the new plan. Dwayne has switched the bodies, and the real president is being medically worked on while Dave is in the passenger seat of the ambulance. Dwayne gives him, this is probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. And it's remember the setup and payoff from the sandwich scene? Yeah. This is Dwayne's payoff, where, he tells him, he goes, is it far from here? Do you need a ride or anything? He says, no, I can walk. And before he leaves, they shake hands, and Dwayne stops and says, Dave, I'd have taken a bullet for you. Mm-hmm. That's a great scene.
Yeah, that's a great payoff, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great payoff there. So, resolution, media reaction to the death of Bill Mitchell and the swearing in of VP Nance. And here's the other payoff, the main one. Dave decides to run for city council. Yep. Just like the Vice President Nance and how he got started. Closing image, bookend to the opening big picture. Instead of big Washington scenery, we're in a little office in nowhere, USA, where a little guy, the little engine that could, is running for city council.
A little guy that looks like the former president.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the former president. Dave achieves his spiritual goal to lead, not just to help. So that's where I think the goals come in. The tangible goal What he wanted from the beginning was to help. His spiritual goal, which he did not know he needed, was that he was actually going to run for office and be a political figure.
So I was going to say one thing, but I'll say two now. So the scene at the end where Mrs. President Sigourney Weaver walks into his city council campaign headquarters.
Yeah, his little office there.
Yeah, I love that scene because it's funny because they kiss in his office and everyone's watching.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, realistically, the conspiracy theorists would be going insane.
Well,
if
not
this
just
happened.
that.
And Oliver Stone's already on the case.
Yeah, because he's in the movie, right? Now, I wouldn't say that currently our last two presidents had very visible first ladies, but the two administrations before that pretty much did.
Michelle
right?
Obama.
Right. So this would be the case of, let's say you were in an office and you saw Michelle Obama come in and make out with an Obama impersonator.
That looks exactly
like him.
Exactly.
Not long after the real Obama dies.
Exactly. I mean, come
right?
on.
Like that would be weird.
So
People...
they removed the suspension of disbelief for me in that scene right there.
And exactly. Who's to say people would be like, she killed him. She killed her husband. Because she wants to fuck the impersonator, right? So, yeah, they probably... Well, all right, there's a couple of things I want to get to. That was one of them.
Okay.
So, all right, trivia.
Yeah.
A couple of trivia points here. Sigourney Weaver's hair is shorter than she normally has it because she shaved her head in her previous movie, Alien 3, which came out a year before.
Wow.
Another fun little trivia tidbit here. Both former presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are fans of the movie. Bill gave screenwriter Gary Ross a signed copy of the script where he wrote on the front, "Funny, often accurate lampooning of politics." Obama later told Kevin Kline, quote, "I love watching the movie when I'm depressed because you made the job of the president look so fun and so easy."
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to get to, I have two possible script issues. And one of them wasn't even what you just mentioned, so we'll call that 3.
Okay.
Yes, I probably wouldn't have had everyone see them kiss at the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, I get that they try to sell it by her coming in somewhat disguised. She's wearing a ball cap.
I mean,
but
it's really a romantic comedy's payoff to see that, to have that scene. I get it.
It is. Hang on, I needed my drink of scotch for this one. All right. Because I like this movie so much, I got to tell you this next segment's going to pain me.
Uh-oh.
I have 2 script problems.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so despite being nominated for the Oscar, this script does break a major rule, one colossal rule that I normally cannot stand. I accepted it in this movie because I like it. But it's the concept of you should never have luck go your way. Bad luck that presents obstacles for your characters are always good. The example we've always used in the past, Apollo 13, right?
Yeah.
Like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happens, but we accept it because they're obstacles. All the way until the moment they're about to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, they tell Gene Kranz, who's played by Ed Harris, they're like, the landing site, there's a typhoon warning.
Right.
And they say it might miss them, and Ed Harris goes, yeah, only if their luck changes, right? But that's good. That works for screenwriting. The bad example is when good luck helps your characters out of a problem. It's a sign to me of bad writing where they don't know how to get out of something, so they just use luck. I'll give you 2 examples. I've mentioned the Thor one in the past. Mm-hmm. In the Marvel movie Thor, he's in a hospital. After he falls to Earth, he's in a hospital, but he escapes, right? Because he wakes up and he's Thor, and he's like, what the hell am I doing here? So he breaks out of the hospital. Natalie Portman and her friends are trying to find him, so they go to the hospital, but he's escaped.
Right.
So he's not there. How are they going to find him? Well, let's just pop the car in reverse, and lo and behold, we hit him.
Yeah,
he happened to be walking behind the car at the moment they popped it in reverse.
Hey, you know.
Ew, how fucking lucky was that? I mean, they never would have found him otherwise, right?
It's Marvel. You're there to watch a Marvel movie.
See? You're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. All right. Another example, and I just thought of this one recently, and I wanted to add it in here. In Twins, it's another perfect example. The Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito movie. Now, before you say, Who gives a shit? It's not like that's The Godfather or anything. True. It's just twins. It's a funny little comedy, whatever. But it's got a perfect one of these rule breaks. Here's what happened. So Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the movie. He's like born and raised on an island, right? A tropical island somewhere. He goes to the States to find his long-lost brother, Danny DeVito. He has no idea where to find him. He could be anywhere in the country. He only knows the orphanage that he grew up in. That's it. So he goes to the orphanage, and he asks the nun, where is he? And the nun says, oh, a man like him, he'd only be in jail. Check there first. He gets arrested and put in jail the day before that happens.
That's hilarious.
So when he goes to the jail cell, what do you fucking know? Danny DeVito's in jail. If he hadn't gotten arrested for, by the way, get this, unpaid parking tickets, that movie never happens.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? Because how would he ever find him?
It's a crazy premise to begin it.
Well, it's a silly premise to begin with, but they used luck for those two to get hooked up together. Right? So it happens in this movie. The midpoint scene where he has all the cabinet members in there and he trims the $650 million from the budget.
Right.
If the media and the cameras aren't there, that scene doesn't work.
Yeah, right. Because they felt the pressure. Right.
That's the only reason why they agreed is because all the cameras are there. Even Bob stands up twice to try to stop him, but then the cameras are all taking pictures and he's like, never mind. Nothing. And he sits down. If those cameras weren't there, Bob gets up and says to all the cabinet members, everybody leave. Clear the room. Get out. And then he would fucking have his way with Dave, right? He'd be like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Right?
Right.
So, but because the media is there, he can't do it. Now, they open the scene with Bob saying to Alan, what's with all the cameras? And Alan goes, oh, it's the 100th session or meeting or whatever. I thought it'd be a nice touch. And as if that's supposed to explain it. Right. That's still luck. That's still luck because they have no idea what Dave is about to drop on them.
But part of the story was that Dave called the media to be there.
No, not that scene. He calls the media another time. He only meets with Murray the scene before to trim $650 million from the budget. The next scene, the cameras are already there.
Oh, it doesn't even say, yeah.
Right. He calls the emergency meeting later when he fires Bob. He didn't call this one. So
I remember for some reason I thought he did. I thought he called the budget meeting, and when he did, he requested the media, I thought.
No, I don't think so.
So we'd have to rewatch that scene, too.
No, because Alan even says, Alan doesn't say if Dave wanted it or Dave called for it. He says, I thought it would be a nice touch. It's the 100th meeting, right?
Well,
or whatever it was.
Who said that?
Alan says that to Bob.
Oh, so Alan would have requested the media.
Right. So it doesn't work. It's luck. Yeah. But here's how you could have fixed it. Because I like to rewrite movies while we do these podcasts, apparently. Even Oscar-winning or Oscar-nominated screenplays. They could have fixed it just like you said. They could have a snippet of a scene earlier. Like maybe after Murray leaves and he walks Murray to his car, maybe he stops in on Alan and he says, hey, are we still doing that budget thing tomorrow? And Alan could have been like, yeah. And, oddly enough, it's the 100th meeting. Dave could have said something like, oh, that's nice. Have the media there. That would be a nice touch. You know what I mean? It should have been Dave's idea. Or
that would have worked.
Or they hint that Alan was in on it the whole time.
Yeah, if Alan's already his number 2 and the Secret
he's
Service
the good
man
guy.
His number 3.
He's the good guy of the two, right? Because Bob's the bad guy. So if he had told Alan, this is what I want to do, and Alan said, great. Obviously you don't want to show that, but you could have shown later that Alan was in on it.
Right.
Right? So that's my biggest problem is the use of luck in that scene.
Yeah.
My other problem, which is a minor one, this is a minor one, but it still bothered me when I was rewatching it for this podcast. Alan claims that putting the First Liberty scandal on Nance was Bob's idea. It wasn't. It was his. Now, Bob's plan from the beginning, he even says, we dig up some dirt on the vice president, force him to resign, and then we have Dave nominate me for vice president. So it is Bob's plan.
Yeah.
But the First Liberty scandal? That's on Alan. Alan tells him when Bob comes in, he goes, hey, remember that First Liberty scandal? He goes, yeah. He goes, I just dumped it all on Nance.
Oh, you're right.
And Bob's like, oh, that's a great idea. So it was Alan that did it. And Alan owns none of that at the end. He says from the beginning, oh, it's all Bob's idea. It's Bob's idea. This was what Bob wanted. So I didn't like that because if Alan is the good guy, he should have either A, owned up to it.
They could have kept him clean.
Or B, right, not having his idea at all. It could have been Bob's. Bob could have walked into his office that day and said, remember First Liberty? How about we put that on
why'd they do it? Because they already had a bad guy. Why not just make him the bad guy?
Yeah, exactly. Just put it on Bob.
Yeah.
So those are the two things. And, of course, the kissing at the end. I probably wouldn't have... I get it's a romantic comedy, so they wanted to have that kiss at the end. But they didn't need to have everybody in the office see it.
Right.
That, to me, raises a lot of questions. So those three things, but that's it. And maybe that's the difference between it being nominated for the Oscar and not winning the Oscar. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Of course, nobody's beaten The Piano that year. That was an amazing screenplay. So that wouldn't have made the difference. But anyway, I love this movie.
Yeah,
so I was willing to forgive those little 3 blips. But again, for all you writers out there, do not use luck to get out of a problem.
It might cost you an Oscar.
Everything has a reason. Gary Ross did not win the Oscar because of that scene, I guarantee it. Yeah. But the script was still good enough to get nominated. All right, final thoughts?
Just I loved it, man. It's timely, a good movie to watch right now. So that's it.
All right.
So, what's the next movie?
The Campaign, the next political movie we chose.
Hold on, I'm gonna need another drink.
Yeah, I got. You know what? Let's pause for station identification because I also have to drink my scotch for this one.
This movie, I don't know, man.
My whiskey.
There's
so
much.
Scotch.
So here's the thing. Here's my deal with it.
I think I know what you didn't like about it.
It's just the junior high humor.
Yep, I was gonna say you didn't like the crudity.
I get you
Sophomore.
can be crude and funny. I get that. And sometimes it requires
Airplane is crude and funny.
Exactly. But this was just like it was like 6th grade humor.
Yeah,
it wasn't that funny to me. I don't know.
There were a couple. I'm going to tell you right off the bat because I don't even mention her in my beats at all. Mm-hmm. That's how insignificant I think the part was. The joke about the maid and they make her speak in a old black accent because the old rich guy. That joke just fell flat for me. It just wasn't funny.
Well,
I just didn't think it was funny.
I actually laughed at her.
Of course. The one joke I thought was not that funny is the one joke you liked.
No, I loved it because she was like, I don't know. I mean, she's like, yeah, this is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, but like when she like overdoes it.
Oh,
with
yeah.
The,
it was stupid, but
the Southern black,
But I loved her sass and her attitude, though. That
yeah, the sass and attitude was nice, but the joke of her having to do that, like I don't know, I didn't think it was funny. Yeah. But anyway, okay, all right, Specs, 2012, directed by Jay Roach, written by Chris Henchy, Sean Harwell, and Adam McKay. Running time of 1 hour 25 minutes, even shorter. And a budget of $95 million. It cost $95 million.
It's because of how many names they had.
So
that's why.
It was. Oh, by the way, because the movie, an hour and 25 minutes, that's 85 minutes, right, of screen time. That means that they spent more than $1 million per minute.
That's insane.
Okay, so it was released on August 10th, 2012, and made about $105 million worldwide. So it did clear its budget. Barely, but it cleared it.
Right.
It was good for 69th place that year. This is why I said the audience members agreed with you, Chris, because not that many people went to see this movie. Now, back in the day, $100 million, that was a blockbuster. But in 2012, it's 69th place.
And you know what? I'm looking through the cast right now.
Yeah.
Every one of these people would be like, yeah, that movie was kind of stupid, but... Do you think I care? How much do each of these people get paid?
Yeah, well, they probably
$1 million
look at
a person, more.
You know what the funny thing is? There's a movie called Your Highness with Academy Award nominee James Franco, Academy Award winner Natalie Portman, and and they look back on that movie and they're like, we did that for fun so we could smoke pot and get high and drink and just Danny McBride, we did it.
Can you imagine the
fun.
partying that went on this set?
Yeah. So they're so that's what these guys were probably thinking. We're like, let's do this movie for fun.
Let me get this straight. You're gonna pay me to have a party with these people?
Yeah, exactly. So again, 69th place that year, falling behind films like Chronicle, Zero Dark 30, and Paranormal Activity 4. And those are just like in the 60s. Like I didn't mention the top movies.
Yeah.
But it did beat out This Is 40, the Red Dawn remake, and get this, the Phantom Menace 2012 3D re-release.
Oh boy. I mean... Hey, I didn't go see either of those two movies, so.
All right. So, top 5 movies of 2012, though, in ascending order. Number 5, Ice Age Continental Drift, $877 million worldwide. Number 4, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey at $1.017 billion with a B. Number 3, The Dark Knight Rises, $1.084 billion.
Wow.
The number 2 movie of 2012 was Skyfall, $1.1 billion. And can you guess the number 1 movie of 2012 with $1.5 billion worldwide?
Was it Avatar?
No, but it does start with an A and a V.
Really?
You got the first 2 letters right.
What the hell?
I'll give you a hint.
I can't think
Marvel.
of it.
Marvel.
Oh, Avenger. Yeah.
The Avengers. The Avengers.
Which one?
The Avengers.
Oh, it was the first?
The first that they called
Avenger?
the Avengers.
Yeah,
prior to that, there were all the individual stories.
Yeah.
Iron Man's and Thor and all that shit.
And for years, just about every Avenger movie raked in that kind of money. That was nuts.
Yeah. So the Avengers was the first one where they were all together, and that was $1.5 billion. Now, funny note here, okay? Not one fully original screenplay in that list.
That's crazy.
All are either based on some sort of previously released source material or a sequel of some kind. Man. You have to go all the way down to the 12th place movie for that year before you get to an original screenplay, and it's Seth MacFarlane's Ted. The Talking Teddy Bear was the 12th highest grossing film that year.
And that's why so many people complain about not seeing original ideas. Well, they found out how to make money. I mean, think about it. They just said, we got cash cows here to milk.
But here's the point I would make. Seth MacFarlane's Ted, that finished 12th place, $549 million worldwide. Still a pretty goddamn good hit.
Yeah, no
right?
kidding.
And that's a talking bear.
And that's why they've had sequels.
Yeah, and that's a talking teddy bear. So, all right, the campaign, let's get back on track here. The campaign performed poorly. And like you said, it's kind of shocking considering the leads that are in it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was topical. 2012 was an election year, just like this year. And it came out in August, mere months before the election. So with that cast and that timing, it's surprising that I keep saying it didn't do well. It still made $100 million. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was 69th on the worldwide list that year. 2012 was, of course, Obama's re-election. It received 0 Academy Award nominations, nor any other nominations of any sort, except it did win Theodore Shapiro the BMI Film Music Award for Best Film Music. I have no idea what the criteria was for that award.
All right.
All right, it stars Will Ferrell as Cam Brady. By the way, before we continue, how fucking great is that? In 2012, the 2 biggest names in the NFL, which was the biggest sport in the time, it still is, was Cam Newton and Tom Brady.
Right.
So they named this guy Cam Brady. How fucking perfect is that?
Yeah.
And Zach Galifianakis is Marty Huggins. Does that not look like somebody you want to just give a hug to? Like, the names are perfect. Cam Brady and Marty Huggins. Jason Sudeikis also stars as Mitch, Dylan McDermott as Tim Watley, not the one from Seinfeld, Catherine Lanassa as Rose Brady, Sarah Baker as Mitzi Huggins, and special appearances by John Lithgow as Glenn Mach, Dan Aykroyd as Wade Mach, and Brian Cox as Raymond Huggins. All right, when did you first see this movie?
Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I was like, when did I watch it? That was yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
You avoided it for 12 years?
Yeah. Yep. Hungover from a Lions win.
Yeah, see, that didn't help either. You were sober, you were hungover. This isn't the movie to watch when you're sober.
Well, I wasn't really hungover. I didn't drink much Sunday. But I was up late. It was like, I got 3 hours sleep because it was a primetime game.
You were in a sleep hangover.
Yeah, 3 hours sleep, and I'm watching this movie.
So
Instead of taking a nap.
I actually did see this movie in the theater. I actually paid to see it, and will say...
You're the problem.
I am the problem, and I'll tell you what, sir, I laughed a lot of times.
I bet.
Because that sophomore humor, that crude shit, dude had me rolling.
No, I called it junior high humor, son.
Sorry, junior high, even worse than sophomore. All right. All right, you're done pouring your urine there. Log me.
All right. An incumbent representative embroiled in personal scandal faces a no-holds-barred challenge from a native... Sorry.
From a native?
I gotta read the whole thing over now. I'm cutting all that out.
All right.
It's naive, but it looked like native.
I think you should keep it in.
Okay.
From a
faces a no-holds-barred challenge from a naive newcomer funded by two unscrupulous billionaire lobbyist brothers. That was... I just totally bombed it on native. Yeah. Anyways.
All right. Well, actually, all jokes aside, it was actually realistic because it takes place in North Carolina, and Zach Galifianakis is from North Carolina.
He's a native.
So technically, he is a native. All right. We have the beats. Opening image, Mitch prepping Cam for a speech. This is the intro to Cam Brady, congressman from North Carolina, and his campaign advisor, Mitch, played by Jason Sudeikis. Setup. The first few minutes of the film, we set up Cam's speeches throughout a montage that he is the incumbent representative. Theme stated, it comes early. No pun intended. As at the 3-minute mark, Cam is having sex with his mistress Shayna in an outhouse. She says to him, quote, Cam, it smells horrible in here. To which he replies, it's not that bad once you get used to it. To
so
me,
gross.
that's the theme. That's the theme of the movie because it carries through the film of politics, right? Politics in Washington is an outhouse, right?
Exactly.
It stinks.
You get used to the
shitty,
smell, I guess.
But you get used to it once you're in there, right?
God.
That's the corruption in our nation's capital. All right. Instead of a 4-point push, this movie, we have a 5-point push. Are you ready? Inciting incident. At the 4-minute mark, Cam's polling numbers are plummeting due to a leaked inappropriate phone call he made, which is kind of funny, that scene where he calls the wrong number and he leaves a voicemail. He thought he was calling his mistress.
Yeah.
And he called like some super religious family that's trying to have dinner.
Yeah, I did laugh at that part. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was like, oh my God.
All right, wait, here we go. Hey. Oh, it's lightsaber time. All right. Here we go. Where did I leave off? Okay, so this is the first debate. Debate part 1. 7 minutes in, we're introduced to the Mach brothers and their desire to have Cam replaced in the district of which he represents. More setup here as they fixate on Marty Huggins, the son of longtime political ally. What was his name? Raymond Huggins. Marty goes to see his dad, who tells him he's going to run for office and challenge Cam for the seat. Catalyst, 15 minutes in. Marty crashes Cam's formal declaration by announcing in court he is running for the seat. Debate begins. 18 minutes in. This is the second debate, actually. This is debate part 2. 18 minutes in, after a quick montage of media reaction, we get a sense of how the wives and families are handling this. Rose, Cam's wife, is unhappy, and she seems pissed at Cam, while the Huggins family, led by Mitzi, is all happy and very supportive of Marty. Break into 2. So, the formal brunch where the opponents meet. This kicks off into the second act because once this happens, the before world for each of them is over, and they're now fully engrossed in a campaign, a dirty one. A particular funny note is when Cam is giving his speech about keeping things civil and keeping things clean, he ends the speech with, support the troops. Like, it just throws that in there. And I love that because is that not a political thing where, like, you know, you say this speech, it could have anything to do with nothing, but as long as you end it with support the troops, you get everybody clapping.
That's your drop the mic.
That's your drop the mic moment. So, and of course, he talks about being civil and having a civil campaign, and then he runs this ad, he runs this video for everyone. He's, let's meet Marty Huggins, and he shows this video that suggests he's communist,
right?
And his dogs are communist. I have to say this though, as much as we rank on this movie. Of all the movies we've done, I don't know if there's a clearer jump into Act 2. This is one of the clear jumps to Act 2. At the 22-minute mark, right after that video is over, and a very hurt and crushed Marty Huggins looks at Cam as if, like, why'd you just do that? fucking Will Ferrell looks at him and goes, "Welcome to the fucking show." Because then, I mean, you feel it. Like, the second that's it. We're in Act 2 now. You know what I mean? Like, that is the clearest break from Act 1 to Act 2 that we might have seen in a while. All right, B story. At 23 minutes, exactly 1 minute later, we always say a half hour, but it's really at the beginning of the second act. What happens? The B story. Tim Whatley is introduced as Marty's campaign manager, whose job is to make sure Marty, quote unquote, doesn't suck. Tim Whatley serves the B story because he's going to drive both of the leads to their spiritual goal. All right, fun and games. Now in the thick of the campaign, we have our first candidate debate on live TV. A funny moment when Cam makes fun of Marty's inability to talk trash. He gives him a... I can't even get this out. This is so funny. So he's like, "That's your trash talking?" He's like, "This is how I trash talk." He says, "What's the difference between your mom and a wash machine? When I dump a load in a wash machine, it doesn't follow me around for 3 weeks."
God.
So rewatching this movie for the podcast, I had to pause it because I laughed as hard this time as I did the first time I saw it. Because I think I had forgotten that joke. But God, that's so great.
Once again, a sixth grader wrote that.
Yes, and I laughed my ass off. It's such a great line. That's great trash talk. That's a good mom joke. All right. And it clearly hurts Marty's feelings. Like, that's the other funny part, is it really crushes him. But he is able to land his staple campaign slogan in that scene, "Bring your broom, because it's a mess," which is also a play on the theme.
Yep.
All right, so this is immediately followed by the baby punch scene, which is another thing that I'd never seen in a movie until this day. I remember when I saw Pet Sematary in the theater and the semi runs over the kid, I remember thinking, that's the first time I ever seen that. You don't kill kids in movies.
Yeah.
Like, you don't show that.
Well, tell that to Stephen King.
Exactly. But then I felt the same thing when I saw this movie for the first time in the theater. I'm like, they just punched a kid. They punched a baby. Like that's hilarious, dude. Then we go into a montage of Cam's. Into the second debate, Marty corners Cam by asking him to recite the Lord's. And when Cam agrees, he starts with, "At this time, I'd like the media to turn off any recording devices."
Yeah.
Could you imagine if a politician said that during a live debate? All right. So this, of course, sets up... and by the way, I don't want to bury the joke of the story there, but he can't do it, right? He's trying to recite the Lord's Prayer. It's kind of like, again, I don't want to get too much into real politics, but when those guys asked Trump what his favorite line of the Bible was, and he's all, it's very personal, I don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. It's almost the same thing.
Yeah, like... But yeah, so he can't do the Lord's Prayer, and his campaign advisor, is trying to like do the charades.
Actually, that's
him.
almost exactly. That's like reality mimicking art, because that came out a long time ago, and this movie did. But seriously, asking someone that claims to be a Christian their favorite story in the Bible, I mean, that leaves it wide open. That's a softball.
Yeah, that shouldn't be too hard to answer. Shit, I can do that.
But also, in this movie, I mean, if you claim to be a Christian, you should be able to recite the Lord's Prayer. I mean, everyone knows.
Doesn't know the Lord's Prayer, for crying out loud? But he butchers it, of course, because he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
His version is hilarious, but really, really bad. Okay, so... So this, of course, sets off a new montage. By the way, this movie's filled with montages.
Yeah.
As they show the candidates taking on religion, right? Right following that debate, they're both trying to take on religion. And like, is it Cam that gets bit by the snake? He's got like a snake charmer, whenever his arm gets bit. So after a stressful beginning to the campaign, the Huggins family decides to have a little slice of heaven night where they all just let loose and be themselves. Until drunk Tim Whatley comes in, and it's another one of my favorite scenes where he comes in the middle of them dancing and he says, "What the fuck is going on here?" And then moments later he says, "Marty, I need you kicking Cam's balls in on a daily basis, and I come in here and find you playing hee-haw with the fuck around gang." I almost beat myself when I was in the theater, man. So, like, yes, these sophomore, junior high jokes.
Oh,
like,
my God.
When I was rewatching this is, by the way, I've only seen this movie twice. In the theater in 2012 and 2 days ago for this podcast. So I was reminded of all the jokes that I laughed at when I was 12 years younger. But man, oh God, some of them were pretty funny. So that brings us directly, and I mean almost in the same scene, to the midpoint scene. At the 43-minute mark, Marty commits to Tim and lets him know that he's going to take it seriously from here on out, which alienates and pisses off Mitzi.
Right.
Just about the time this happens, Cam Jr. comes into Cam's office and tells him he's going to run for class president. But, just like his dad, policy doesn't matter. He's going to use lies, slander, and attack ads and culture war issues, just like his dad does. This kind of upsets Cam a little bit.
Yeah.
So, they're false victories for both. Marty and Tim seem to be on the path to win, but at the cost of losing his family. Cam appears to have the affection of his son, but at the cost of decency and righteousness. And the theme is rearing its ugly head again as the audience is being, delivered this promise of the premise. All right, bad guys closing in. Marty gets Cam drunk and then gets him pulled over in a hilarious drunk stop scene that's being recorded on the cop's dash cam.
Yeah.
We have the third debate now where Marty turns up the heat by bringing out Cam's second grade manifesto called Rainbow Land and calls it communist.
Yeah. All right.
And it's followed by a dog punch, which mirrors the baby punch, only this time he hits a dog.
Yep.
So punching a baby wasn't bad enough. Okay, Rose then leaves Cam because he's losing. He's on the ropes in this campaign, by the way. This segment is like all Marty. And he hits his breaking point when he sees a Marty Huggins attack ad where he befriends Cam's son, Cam Jr., and gets him to call him dad in the attack ad. And enraged Cam declares, quote, "You get my son to call you daddy, I fuck your wife." And Mitch goes, "That's the deal?" And he goes, "That's the deal."
So crazy.
So Cam goes to see Mitzi and does in fact seduce her and records her having sex with him. Against Mitch's wishes, he intends to air the footage in his own attack ad. Once again, getting further and further away from any substantial policy issues. Right? Again, the premise we're talking about, how bad it gets in Washington.
Right.
All is lost. A furious Mitch quits, and now Cam is running his own campaign at the 59-minute mark. Likewise, in the next scene at 1 hour, 1 minute, the Huggins family has it out over Mitzi's infidelity, and she leaves her husband. So both candidates at this point have hit rock bottom, right? This is a pretty clear all is lost.
Yeah.
Dark Night of the Soul. Marty meets with the Mach brothers, but shoots down their proposal to turn the district over to China. The Machs pull their support and shift Tim Whatley over to Cam, which leads us directly to Break Into 3. At the 1 hour, 6 minute mark, the new and improved Cam Brady is now represented by Tim Whatley, and he's going to take on Marty. Okay, 5-point finale. Here we go. Gathering the team. The Huggins family reunites. All is forgiven. Execution of the plan. Marty turns out the Machs to the public, exposing their ties to China. And he even says, quote, "Telling the truth feels good," he says. This is Marty's premise delivery. High tower surprise. Cam still wins, but the election was rigged. Where we heard that argument before. Dig down deep. Marty opens up to Cam about the jungle gym and the slide that scarred him physically for life. Cam realizes that honesty, integrity is what's needed in Washington, not the backstabbing lies and culture wars. And he reunites with Mitch. Execution of the new plan. Cam gives it all back and turns the election win over to Marty Huggins, effectively leaving the outhouse stink of politics behind him. This is Cam's preface delivery. So you see how they both met their spiritual goal in the same finale. Resolution, the Mach brothers are served a subpoena. Closing image, bookend to the opening image. Instead of Mitch prepping Cam for a speech, it's Cam prepping and building up Marty for his. All right, notes on character. Tangible goal, to succeed at any cost, which both achieve at the midpoint. Spiritual goal, to shed the stink of political crap, the political outhouse, as it were, a metaphor, behind and be a successful leader for the people. All right, what do you think before I get into trivia?
Well, I already tipped my hand.
I think I got you laughing, though, at a few of those jokes.
No, I mean, I was 12 once, so it's, I could find that humor still.
So the 12-year-old inside of you laughed at those jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just...
Fuck around gang?
It's so over the top. I don't know,
Fuck
man.
around gang.
I guess 12-year-olds need movies too.
All right, here we go. All right. I'm not going to ask you which movie was better. We already know who wins this matchup. All right, trivia. When Tim Whatley is trying to toughen up Marty, he's making him say lines spoken by Burt Reynolds. The episode that they're watching that he's pulling this from is a TV show called BL Stryker, an old Burt Reynolds TV show. The funny thing is, in the scene that they show, there's a young Michael Chiklis in the scene with him.
I thought that scene was funny.
Yeah. The Mach Brothers, another part of trivia, the Mach Brothers are based on the real-life Koch brothers, who are major contributors to conservative policies. There's always that conspiracy theory that the Koch brothers are like secretly running the world, you know?
Right.
Like them and the Illuminati, you know? You always hear that shit. So the Mach Brothers were based on them. Zach Galifianakis' real-life uncle was an actual representative in North Carolina, but lost a 1972 Senate bid to Jesse Helms. In the movie they campaigned, the character of Marty's dad, Raymond Huggins, played by, what's his face? Oh my God. Brian Cox. He is said to have been the campaign manager to Jesse Helms. So little line in there for fun. All right, anything before we get to 6 degrees?
No, please,
right.
let's get to 6 degrees.
But wait. No, so for the audience, we did pose a question.
Yeah.
We posed the question. The question was, are there any good politicians? So the answer is, if Kevin Kline existed as Dave, we would have one. But actually, can you make an argument that Marty Huggins ends up, after he finds a spiritual goal,
He becomes a politician, yeah.
he becomes a good politician,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the answer is, in the movie world, you can have good politicians. We haven't seen one in the real life world yet. As much as you love the presidents, either side of the aisle you are on, we don't pick sides on this show. We are inclusive to everybody. Nobody walks away clean out of Washington. Everybody's got some sort of outhouse stink on them.
Yeah. On this show, we don't take sides, but if you turn the mics off and meet us at the bar, we can have a doozy of a conversation.
Oh, yeah. See, my brother and I often disagree, which would make it fun if we did air an episode, because we would include everybody, because half the audience would side with me and the other half would side with you.
We'd probably have a better podcast, too.
We might get more listeners. All right, 6 degrees. What do you have for me?
All right, so I literally had to go through these casts because there are some big names in both these movies. And, I try, when we do the 6 degrees, I try to find two people that you might have a difficulty connecting within 6 degrees. So they, can't be in a lot of popular movies or, whatever, haven't done a lot of movies. So I chose Frank Drank, number one, because of his name. Frank Drank, it's happy hour. So I chose Frank Drank. He was a biker in the campaign. And Sarah Marshall, who played Diane in Dave.
So Diane in Dave, if I remember correctly, she's the secretary that when Murray comes to visit, he says, hey, can they rustle up from some fresh bratwurst, right?
Yeah.
She's the one that says, yeah, I think that can be arranged. So she takes their food order. That's her, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And Frank Drank is a biker, and it's got to be the scene where Cam is like trying to relate to all the is there bikers in like a bar? I can't remember where.
I saw it, and it was like a.
He's got a big beard, right?
Yeah,
He's got a
it was
long
like
beard.
I don't even know if it was. I don't think he was on screen for 30 seconds.
Okay,
it was a really quick scene.
All right, so Frank Drank, and it is a great name, by the way, Frank, if you're listening. I know you're not, but if you were, it's a great name. So Frank Drank was in the 2014 movie called Tell with Robert Patrick of T2 fame. Robert Patrick was in a 1998 movie called Ambushed with Courtney B. Vance, who was in the 1995 film Dangerous Minds with Sarah Marshall.
Wow.
So
what year was the Sarah Marshall film?
Dangerous Minds?
Yeah, what year was that?
95.
95.
So 95, 98, wow. 2014. So Frank Drank can connect to Sarah Marshall.
That's in how many? Was it 3?
That was 3.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now
looking
wait.
back, she did a lot of TV back in the 50s
they both
and
did.
60s.
They actually, Frank Drank's had a lot of TV too. I looked a lot of his. He had short films and television episodes.
How old was she? Because in the 50s, she must. Oh wow. Oh, she passed away in 2014. Rest
Wow,
in peace, Sarah.
2 years after the campaign came out.
Yep,
she was
80,
in Dave. She was in Dave.
She was older than I thought she was, because she was 78 years old when the movie came out.
78 in 1993? She was in Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, no, that's dumb. No, I don't know. I'm thinking of
Frank Drank. This is what Champagne does to my brother.
Yeah,
He gets
I'm sorry. I got the movie mixed up. Yeah, she was in
up.
Dave, not
She was in Dave,
the campaign.
right.
Okay.
But still,
Anyways,
she was an older woman in Dave.
Yeah,
So,
but
and that was 93.
She was in an episode of Star Trek in 1967. A little more trivia. Anyways,
Nice.
good job.
Okay, wait. I have a little one for you here. Because I thought you would give me shit for Ambushed 1998. It's R-rated, and it's one of those like straight to DVD things, but in IMDb it's listed as TV movie. Now it can't be a TV movie because it was rated R. It actually was given an R rating by the Motion Picture Association of America, which means it technically cannot be a TV movie. But knowing you always give me shit when I pick a movie, and you say, no, you can't use that.
Well,
That's a TV movie.
To be honest, I wasn't checking.
You didn't check, but if you did, I had a backup. Are you ready for the backup?
Let's hear the backup.
All right, the backup is in 4. Not 3, but here's the backup. Frank Drank was in And They're Off, 2011. That's the name of the movie, And They're Off. With Martin Mull, who's in the 1983 Mr. Mom, with Michael Keaton, who was in the 1992 Batman Returns with Michelle Pfeiffer, who, of course, is in the 1995 Dangerous Minds with Sarah Marshall.
So is that 4?
So it's 4 if you use theatrical releases only. Actually, I don't even know if They're Off, which was a Sean Astin movie. I don't even know if that was in the theaters, but it doesn't say TV movie on IMDb.
Yeah, that's crazy. To get the R rating, did it have to be?
That's why I'm confused. That's the first time I've ever seen. Most of the time on IMDb, if it says TV movie, it says NR.
I wonder if it was shown on a screen somewhere and it just didn't get.
Yeah,
you know.
Normally it'll say NR for no rating if it's a TV movie.
Huh. Interesting.
But anyway, I gave you 2 just in case you gave me shit on the first one. All right, so we already answered the question we posed to the audience. How about the movie-going question? Which movie was better? I think we know.
I mean, you know what? It depends on the crowd and what you want, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if you're high and you're with all your
if
friends.
You're getting baked with all your friends, I mean, the Campaign is the obvious choice.
Pop in the Campaign. But if you want a good movie to watch with Mom that you rented from Skip's Video on Friday night in 1993, Dave is your movie. And Mom, by the way, Mom loves this movie.
Yeah.
Mom loves Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well, she'll enjoy this episode then.
Yeah, I hope she does. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen this movie, and we just talked about the endings, you know the rules on this show. We talk endings because we do the beats. So listen to our podcast after you've seen the movies.
Yep.
But if you haven't seen them, I would definitely recommend The Campaign if you're going to get high and drunk with your friends, and Dave if you just want to watch a really good movie about politics. There's a few good political movies out there. You know, I always liked Oliver Stone has done some good ones. JFK and Nixon are good movies. The American President is a fun one. You know, Dave. You know, there are some political movies that are really, really fun. I think Dave is a good one. So yeah, what do you got? Close us out. Land the plane.
Well, I really don't have anything. I just want to those listening right now, I'm guessing you're either an aspiring screenwriter or maybe you are one and you're looking for entertaining tips and advice. Share this with one of your friends. And if you made it this long, you're listening to us for a reason. So share it with someone that you think would also enjoy it.
Now, did we? Oh, I can't remember because we talked a lot before we actually hit record.
Yeah.
Did we mention on this show about the Lions' Sunday night victory?
I did allude to it being hungover.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just for those of you, because I know in previous podcasts we talked about the Lions and their almost Super Bowl run last year. Today is September 10th. And today is not only the first presidential debate with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, but also 2 nights ago, well, I would say 2 nights ago was the game we watched, but this past weekend was week 1 of the NFL.
Yeah.
NFL has kicked off. So by the time you hear this episode, which will probably be 2 months from now, We're recording this 2 days after the Lions on Sunday night had an overtime win against the LA Rams and their old quarterback, Matt Stafford.
It was a freaking nail biter, back and forth, evenly matched teams, and it was a war.
And I think we outplayed them in the first half, and they grossly outplayed us in the second half. And we just had the last 4 minutes of the game to force overtime, and
those 4 minutes were pure magic.
And we never gave them the ball in overtime.
They marched down, 70 yards and just ran
the ball down their throat.
Yeah, it was amazing. I watched the highlight replay yesterday. It's just worth watching. Look it up. I was upset on the replay that they put out, though. The Lions put out a replay. They didn't show like some of the mistakes that the Lions did. And I'm like, it's part of the story. You got to show everything. Some of the big, in the highlights, yeah, they didn't show the big penalty. And we're going off on. I might cut this out.
No, we always throw a little sports in.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't show the penalty on Hutchinson when he went for the legs on Stafford.
Right. Yeah.
That was a big moment. That changed that shifted the energy during.
Did they show Goff's pick? Didn't he throw a pick too, or no?
I don't think they showed that either. And not only didn't they show the penalty on Hutch, they also didn't show the Rams taking the lead. I'm like, why didn't you show that?
They didn't show the touchdown. They got them the lead.
No, they should have. And I was like, what the heck? So it's like it goes from
Bally Sports. Did Bally Sports?
No, the Lions organization put it out.
Oh wow!
It was their Facebook or whatever. I was like, wow, that sucks. So I need to look. Maybe is there another one that Bally might put out?
No, just go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and put Rams Lions highlights, and they'll show you the whole thing.
Yeah, I need to find it
because they're unbiased.
Watching the recaps with the back and forth, you need to experience all that stuff, man. So.
Yeah. So no, just YouTube Lambs Ryans. I just said Lambs Ryans is what I said. That's what I said.
Whiskey.
Lambs Ryans. Lions Rams highlights, and you will see the game in like 15 minutes. They put all the major plays. But I actually heard a sports analyst on TV today say that based on what the Lions did in overtime, he's like, I love Jared Goff, but I would throw the ball 10 times a game. I would run it 50 times a game. He's like,
yeah, that dude was a machine.
He's like, we ran it down their throat, and if that's what we could do to anybody,
I mean, every carry was like 10 yards.
Dude, we're gonna be like Michigan, how the Wolverines were last year. Just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Stout offensive line, control the trenches, run the ball, win the game, control the clock. This is our Super Bowl year. I feel it.
I'm so excited. All right,
I love it. All right,
and look, for those of you who aren't Lions fans, you know where we've been.
Yeah,
we've been in the dumps our whole lives.
You can hear the excitement in our voice. We meant to land this plane, but as we came in for the runway, we're just coasting over the runway right now. Yeah. All right, let's touch down. Close us out.
Yeah, go support your local cinemas.
Keep drinking and keep watching.